Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Today we are doing the mid-July reading update together, and as you can see I have my list here of what I have read so far, and I'm just going to get straight into it. So the first book I finished this month was an e-arc, and it was The Long Game by Elena R. Mears. This follows a young professional who has been working in the soccer industry. Her father is a business mogul, I think that's the way you say that word, and he essentially owns a club, and she has worked for many years to try and build herself up into this role, and is hoping to take over the club when her father eventually decides to move on. Unfortunately, she is caught on camera doing something quite dramatic, attacking the mascot of the club, and is sent away by her father to a small North Carolina township to repent and work off her punishment, which is to help a small group of young girls with their soccer. I found this book just okay. I gave it 3 stars. It was quite dramatic and unrealistic for the majority of the book, and I wasn't impressed with how the main male character went from 0 to 100 in his feelings for the female character. Gosh, I can't even remember what her name is. Adeline is her name, and I liked that there was a little bit of emotional growth from Adeline, and learning how to be herself and not live this life where she panders to everyone. She's known as an ice queen because she doesn't allow her emotions to get in the way, and here in the small township she obviously lets go of that a bit and experiences more for herself, which I did like, but I just didn't really vibe with the overall story. I think if you like Tessa Bailey and her books like My Killer Vacation and Unfortunately Yours, you'll definitely enjoy this one. The main male character, Cameron, gives off a very similar vibe, and I didn't really gel with either of those books, so I think that's why I didn't really enjoy this one as much. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It was just okay. The next book I finished this month is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. If you haven't heard about this book, I'm not sure why. It's everywhere, and I mentioned that I didn't want to read it when I was doing my August hopeful, sorry, not August, I'm a month ahead of myself, July hopeful list. This was a book club read, and I was hesitant because it's so overhyped. And I kind of get the hype. It's very addictive. It's very easy to read. I would highly recommend this as sort of like an introduction to fantasy or romantasy, because it is very addictive, very, 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 very good to read in one or like a small sitting. I found myself wanting to read ahead of the book group, and I ended up doing so. I started a day later than everyone else and was already ahead of everyone else by the time I finished that day's reading. It did take me a while to not read ahead, but I ended up finishing very early because it's just one of those books that you want to consume. You want to know what happens next. It's high stakes. Everything's happening all the time. That being said, it is incredibly formulaic, and the way that it's written, if you've read a lot of fantasy, then this is not going to be new to you. It's just got dragons in it in a different way. I found this to be basically a carbon copy of Cass and Poppy from Blood and Ashes sort of storyline, and ironically that is the author that's on the front of the cover. It felt like a bit of like a fanfic for them, despite the fact that it's different characters, different world, and dragons. Like, it just play for play, it felt like, for me. That being said, I don't hate on this. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was enjoyable, and mostly given those stars because I was addicted to it. I enjoyed the time that I spent, even if I did roll my eyes and go, that's so da-da-da-da for a certain fantasy book that I'd read. Yeah, highly recommended if you're just looking for something that isn't going to be too time consuming and like huge in world lore and everything like that. The author definitely has some more world building to do in book 2, and I will be reading that later this year. The next book I finished was Immortal Longings by 𝓤𝓮𝓮. This is book 1 in the Flesh and False Gods series. As you can see, I gave it 3.5 stars. This was a book that I was looking forward to because it's technically supposed to be Gong's adult fantasy debut novel, and I don't see at all how it is an adult fantasy or separated from her usual fantasy writing, because it felt very much so like I was just reading one of her normal types of characters. So this follows a few characters, but the main one is 𝓬𝓲. She is a princess of one of the twin cities in this world. It's got 2 cities that rule, San and and I think she's the princess of and she is trying to assassinate the king of San because she's already assassinated her own parents. And she enters a deadly game that's played every year, where contestants go around and essentially kill each other off. It's very much so a kill or be killed environment, for the sake of a prize. And she teams up with her cousin, I think it is. His name's August, and he wants her to assassinate his father so he can take over the reign as king. This world also has the ability to jump bodies, which I found really interesting. So you can be born in one body, but you can live completely in another. People jump from body to body at all, like any time of the day. It is kind of deemed illegal, I think, but it's still happening. And 𝓬𝓲 won't do that, but her main rival in the game, I guess, his name is Anton, and he will. He also wants to win the battle because he wants the funds that come from winning the prize to help pay for the hospital bills of someone that he loves. And the 2 of them decide to form an alliance, and yeah, 2 parts. I really enjoyed the side stories to this rather than the actual main storyline of the game and trying to win. I found the game absolutely pointless to the storyline, and it made no sense at times. In fact, at points on page, I just felt like it was there for the characters to do something. There wasn't enough drive, in my opinion, for the game to make sense, especially when you start to navigate the corrupt kingdom side and everything like that. I would have much preferred to spend my time paying attention to that. I did really like how the romance was weaved in to the storyline between Anton and 𝓬𝓲. I really enjoyed them and the decisions they made, both good and bad, and how that played into their characters' development, but also integrity and like their initial morals or lack of morals for what they were doing. However, this is not, like I said at the beginning, it's not an adult debut. It didn't feel like an adult read. I honestly felt like the author gave 𝓬𝓲 the ability to smoke just so she felt a bit more adult. The way that the world is written and that you can't really differentiate from her other types of characters that she's written previously. Now, I'm a huge fan of The Secret Shanghai. I always mess up saying that. Secret Shanghai. There we go. I'm a fan of that series. I really loved Foul Lady Fortune, and so that is the reason why I applied for the arc of this, and I didn't enjoy it. So I did give it 3.5 stars because it's well written, and I did enjoy some aspects of it, but overall it just wasn't my vibe, and I probably wasn't the right reader for it, but how it's marketed is very different from what you're reading. The next book I read was another e-arc, and it was a really sweet, wholesome one. It's called Make Your Move by Heather Garvin. I read this all in one sitting. It is a really adorable coming of age story. So this follows Abby, and she lives on a small farm with her mother. It's a horse farm. She likes to compete, but obviously she has just, you know, the normal means about her, and her boyfriend at the time is rich and grazes his horse, or boards his horse at another facility where it's quite like the prestige of it's quite high, and she thinks her life is somewhat great. She goes into the final summer between graduation of high school and potentially going off to college, feeling a bit lost. Her best friend's gone to summer school, or summer college, and her boyfriend is kind of evading the question about what's going to happen when he goes off to college. And I feel like Abby goes through a lot of growth during this summer. She learns a lot about herself and what she wants and what she won't stand for. And this comes in the form of meeting Carson, who is filling in for his dad. His dad is the farrier, and he can't do it this summer, so Carson is there helping out with that, but also helping around the farm because Abby's mum has employed him to do so. Obviously, you can tell that her relationship with her previous boyfriend is not going to last long because Carson is the main male character, and I just really enjoyed this. It really took me back to those earlier years of showing your vulnerability and not knowing what your next steps were going to be after like graduation, and what to do with your life and how to be treated by people, what you're expecting to be treated like, and all that. And I just found this really wholesome. It was really sweet. I gave it 4 stars. I don't have any complaints about it. Oh, actually I do have one. There is a trigger warning, mild, like really minor physical harassment / abuse happens, and I wasn't really thrilled about that, but otherwise it's a fantastic read, and I highly recommend this when it comes out. I'm not actually sure when it does come out. When does it come out? It should say on the screen, shouldn't it? July 11th, so it's actually already out when I'm posting this video, so do get a copy of this. It's really, really adorable, and yeah, highly recommend. So my dog is having a doggy dream right now, so if you can hear in the background, I do apologize, but this is finally finished. I finally have finished the Secret Service of Tea and Treason. Started this early June. I actually thought I started it in May, but I looked back and it's only June, thankfully, and I just didn't get around to reading it enough. I really enjoyed book 1 and 2 in this series. Book 1 is absolutely phenomenal, but I just feel like the nonsensical and whimsical elements that fueled book 1 into book 2 have heightened to a point where this one's just too nonsensical, if that makes sense. That's pretty much why I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed the characters in book 2 when they were side characters. So Daniel and Alice are from book 2, and they got their book for this one. And like I said, I really loved Daniel so much. It's unfortunate that I didn't get to enjoy them as much in this one. So this one follows them as spies, because that's what they've been this whole time, and they are to infiltrate the pirates at an event, because there's been a tip-off that there may be an assassination on the Queen through some weapon that's inside the house where the event's going to happen, and they are to infiltrate the pirates and get to the weapon before they can like use it. Yeah, they and by doing that they have to pretend that they are a married pirate couple. So I found the concept to make sense, but it just didn't play out the way that I was expecting it to, and I didn't enjoy this one as much. I really like that this author is neurodivergent and she adds that element into her books. I find it really well written, especially in a time period where you would be considered weird or get it beaten out of you for being different. And so I really liked that aspect throughout the entire series, but especially with book 2 and 3. However, I do find that I didn't connect with the characters enough in this one. I really wanted to. I just found it too nonsensical with the pirates and all the things that were happening, that I lost some steam along the way, and it took me a very long time to get through this book. I keep putting it down and not reading it. But it is overall like a good book. That's why I gave it 4 stars. I did have a few laughs. You can see that I've, put some tabs down the side for parts that I enjoyed, but otherwise this was the weakest one in the series. I really hate saying that because the epilogue alone would have been 5 stars. I absolutely loved the epilogue. I was just so happy to get to the end of this series with that epilogue, but getting to that point unfortunately just wasn't right for me, and I didn't enjoy this one as much as I was hoping to. It was a 5-star prediction, and yeah, unfortunately didn't quite hit the mark. And the last book that I finished this month so far is The Siren of Sussex by Mimi Matthews. This is book 1 in the Bells of London series, and let me tell you, I enjoyed this. I listened to it as an audiobook, but I would have thoroughly enjoyed it as any other version or format as well. This follows a young woman named Evelyn, or Evie, and she comes to London to have her season because her older sister, unfortunately, for her, went and ran off with a man and didn't come through with what she was intended to do for the rest of the family. They're all girls, and so it is upon Evie's shoulders to have a good season in London and find herself a husband so she can secure the financial struggles for her family back in Sussex. She decides that because she feels like she is not pretty enough or not as big a socialite, that she would go the route of proving her worth by her skills. And she is a well-ridden lady. She is an equestrian and loves horses, and decides to go to a habit maker and ask him to create her a riding habit that is gorgeous enough for her to stand out in the crowd, so she could do her showing, you know, like how they show themselves off in the season to promote themselves to be what you would want in a wife. She decides to do that on the back of her horse and prove that she is, you know, well ridden and good at being a lady that way, because that's where she thinks her skills lie. She ends up making an alliance with the tailor, who really needs a lady to show off his design so he can build up his credibility in the social circles and make more money so he can open up his own shop. And this is very important to him because he is on the lower aspects of financial wealth due to being part Indian and part English. He feels like he doesn't have a place in this scene enough as is, and so he thinks he has to work very hard, and by doing this to show off his designs, which are absolutely stunning, he teams up with Evie, and you guessed it, they evidently fall in love, and this has a lot of obstacles for them. I really loved this because it's so well balanced. You have the romance aspect with both Ahmed and Evie falling in love with each other despite their social ranks and just their entire difference, with her being a lady, him being a working man or a tradesman, and everything along those lines. And then you have the friendships that Evie creates with the young ladies that she meets in London that also ride horses and will be making up the rest of the series. There's 4 books in total, I believe. That makes sense since there's 4 main friends. And then you have the historical aspects and the themes that the author decided to use, like she weaved in the interest of spiritualism in the 1800s, and also she heavily focused on the fact that Ahmed, who was born in India, his mother had lain with a British soldier, and when he had the opportunity to return from India, he left his mother and who was pregnant with him behind. So he's had this whole theme so there's this real focus on identity and where you belong for both characters, which was really interesting to me, and finding your own independence for a woman in a world where it's led by men, and equally finding your own way to thrive and make something of yourself when you don't feel like you belong anywhere was really significant, and I enjoyed that along with every other element that was in the book. This is a slow burn, and the romance is very sweet. I liked the tension that built between them and the pacing of it, and I just really enjoyed this, and that's why I gave it 5 stars. So overall, I'm really happy with how I have done, considering last month at this point I'd only read like 3 books. So this is a great start for me. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and learning about the books that I've read. And I hope to see you all in another video very soon. Bye everyone.